This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
See, the bad man, I don't like him. And this is what I want to do with him. Yeah? Do you want to have a go? No. Oh, good shot.
So, Netflix recently released a 3-part drama about a young boy named Alex Hanscom, who witnesses the death of his mother Rachel Nickel when a stranger with a knife attacks her in a park, which we don't see happen because the drama is much more concerned with Alex's struggle to process and to grow as a person after the event than it is with the sense of mystery. And as a children's therapist, this obviously interests me a lot more, the question of how does a child continue to grow and to live after witnessing something so traumatic, and similarly, Alex's father, or Rachel's partner, how does he manage the same? This is a true story, we should add, that occurred in the UK in 1992, and where many of the Netflix true crime stories seem kinda disrespectful in my opinion to the families involved to the extent I tend to avoid watching them, this one felt different. Both the real Alex and his father Andre were heavily involved in the making of the show, and whilst it's likely certain aspects of their story have been tweaked or omitted simply for the sake of making a coherent drama, it would seem to suggest this is quite accurate and respectful and has a lot in it worth talking about. So, as we've said, I am a children's therapist. We're going to go through some of the scenes in relation to Alex and break down some of the psychology. Again, to be clear, we're not talking about the real people exactly. I think there's an ethical grey line there I don't like crossing, but we're talking about them as characters in this show. And if you're interested in that, then let's begin with a cool train. So, for context, the show begins with the build-up to the murder. We see Alex getting ready, he and Rachel are going to the park where his dad Andre goes to work. We see them walking through the park, having a good day, talking, and then it abruptly stops, and the next thing we see is Alex sitting in the back of an ambulance, which is a very affecting cut. I want to say that at some point in this video, that this is a really well filmed and edited show in my opinion. From the perspective of a drama, I think it's really, really good, and whilst it's primarily about grief and trauma in ways we're obviously going to talk about, we do also see a police investigation here, and that being another big aspect of this show is the catalogue of failures the police made that could have prevented this and other crimes happening in the first place. However, Andre has been at work when the police contact him. They tell him to come into the station, they explain to him in person what's happened, and then he goes to see Alex.
We've sedated him. He's only just gone off. If you could wait for him to wake up, our child psychologist would like to speak to you before you talk to Alex.
Can I just go in?
He's been sedated.
I don't know enough here to know if sedating a child following an event like this is common today. If the child's injuries merited it, perhaps, but Alex is largely uninjured. It strikes me as an odd decision in that context. However, it does allow Andre to see that his son is safe without the two of them having to talk yet, and I think Andre speaking to a psychologist first is a good idea because it allows them to, for one, get a measure of how Andre himself is, perhaps to reassure some of his own anxieties about Alex, but primarily to prepare the parent so that he can better understand what his son might be going through right now, how he might behave, but also so Andre can respond to his son in the best possible manner, because remember, when people talk about trauma, they're not talking about the traumatic event itself or the situation specifically so much as the body and the brain's reaction to the traumatic event. The autonomic response the body makes and continues to make, and what we know is that the extent of the trauma can often be dictated less by how extreme the traumatic event itself was than by how the caregivers or the support network around the survivor respond after the event, how well they care for them, I suppose. Often that's the most important part of recovering, and with Andre as now the central person in Alex's life, he is best positioned to help Alex do that. So what you don't want, and I imagined may have happened in the past, would be like Andre just turns up, immediately takes Alex home and, I don't know, tells Alex to forget all about it, or says his mum has gone to sleep, or tries to question Alex about what happened and get angry with him when he struggles to explain. None of that would be ideal. It's a very short scene we get with a psychologist, but they say this.
It's important you understand, Andre, that if Alex is going to get over this, you can't lie to him now. What he needs now is honesty and routine.
Which is great advice, in my opinion, because it's worth remembering children struggle to comprehend the finality of death. I once talked about this in a video about the story of Mary Bell. They can understand the explanation of death, but don't necessarily grasp that it's forever. Death is more like someone just going away for a bit. When a young sibling says they wish their brother would die, they normally don't truly mean that, and if they did die they would be horrified. They just meant they wished they weren't there in a very vague sense, that they were gone right now. In this moment it would feel easier without them, but they haven't thought through the reality of what that would mean. So the idea that your mother is just suddenly gone altogether forever is terribly confusing, and the harder that is to understand, the more scary it is. If you introduce the slight uncertainty that she's not necessarily dead and gone forever, if you frame it differently, like she's gone away or she's sleeping, suddenly the child's got the question of, does that mean she can come back? And when she then doesn't come back, why hasn't she? Is that my fault? Do I not love her enough? Does she not love me enough to come back? Or whatever hurricane of different subconscious thoughts might rise up. But second, this is a world-shattering event for Alex. The kind of general unspoken assumption Alex may have had as a child, that the world is a safe place with my parents and people I love will always be there for me, suddenly that kind of belief is fracturing. And if you tell Alex that everything's fine, well, no, I mean, saying things are or will be okay can be a good thing, but I suppose if you try to convince them everything is fine, that nothing is wrong, the way, like, people can sometimes try to shield children from the truth, what you'd then be introducing is a contradiction within them, where they now know deep down everything is not fine. They know that, where the person they most have to trust, and for their own safety need to be able to trust right now, because, you know, there needs to be something in this now highly unpredictable world that they can still trust and have as an anchor. If that person's telling them something different from what they feel and understand deep down, and it doesn't match up, then it's going to be harder not just to trust them, but the general idea that life can still be safe and understandable and trustable. Trustable? Trustworthy. So, obviously you don't need to tell them everything, you don't need to share the details, but you need to be clear. Mum has died, she's not coming back, but it's not your fault, and I am here, and you are safe now, and we are going to be okay. It's a bit of a myth that because children are young and don't fully understand the world, that they won't be as affected by trauma, they'll just forget it. But if anything, they're more affected, because their brains are more malleable and still forming connections at that age, and secrecy, confusion, shutting it out altogether, just make this already confusing and horrible event even more so, and make it feel doubly scary, because now there's the idea that they're not supposed to think about it, that it's unsafe to do so, that thinking about it would mean opening some massively scary Pandora's box that you won't be able to close again. So I'd say that in terms of honesty, and in terms of routine, the murder was a very unpredictable event outside the normal flow of Alex's life. The idea something like that can just suddenly happen out of nowhere, even in a park, is awful. And Alex is likely to then be hyper-vigilant and hyper-alert for all potential signs of danger coming ahead, scanning constantly for anything out of the ordinary. And so if you can give them something that is routine and is structured, and that structure holds up firm boundaries that you can trust won't break, that gives them less that their brains have to be scanning for danger, because they now know what's going to happen and when, at what point of the day, you know? It reduces the capacity on the brain, let's say, for monitoring dangers. Makes it easier for Alex to then relax, freeing up more space for him to focus on play, or development, or relationship building. Structure and routine can often be very, very important for children with trauma, or people with trauma in general. And it supports his attachment to Andre because it reinforces the idea that there can still be these strong pillars of structure and boundary that won't just suddenly fall apart, that not everything is going to fall apart. Every repeated experience of life with Andre happening as it's supposed to happen is then kind of evidence that Andre is still there and can be trusted to still be there going ahead, you know? Just telling Alex you're always going to be there for him isn't a bad thing to say, but it's not as easy to trust as the slow, repeated proof over time of you still being there and things being safe.
Mummy's been killed. And she's gone. She won't be coming back.
So, what we then see are a lot of little scenes of Alex and Andre trying to adjust.
I'm a dinosaur.
I know, but we don't have the
Where
dinosaur.
is it?
It's at home, and we can't go home right now, so...
But I want it.
Okay, Alex, we can't go home, so you have to wear this one.
I want to go home.
We see Andre trying to get his son dressed and Alex refusing because the outfit he wants to wear is at home and they can't go home at the moment because of the police. They're staying with Andre's mum. This is very typical, and whilst the outfit does matter, at heart this is about wanting something from home. It's about his mum. It's about wanting to go back to the way things were. It was his mum we saw dressing Alex at the beginning of the episode. She always did it, and it's upsetting because now she can't. Loosely, Alex will be expressing something around those general points. We can't specifically say exactly what from this short clip, but we can feel Andre's very understandable frustration. And I'd say when he's grieving the same loss, he's doing a great job to keep calm in these kind of moments. But this isn't a conversation you need to battle Alex over. You just need to show him you understand. I know, I want to go home too, Alex, and it's sad we have to wait. Right now it must feel easier to do nothing at all, but I'm with you and I'll help you get dressed and then we can do whatever thing you want to do. That's kind of a stilted example, but you get the idea. You may even want to mention aloud that it's sad because I know you liked best when Mummy dressed you, but I think that would be a step too far right now, this soon. But it's in general to say you don't want Alex to feel it's unsafe to think about his mum or that he should try to pretend she never existed. And you do that by finding ways to still talk about her yourself in small, safe amounts and in a calm, containing manner, and in ways that express love. Pretty soon, the police want to interview Alex because he's the only witness, and we've got this horrible scene of two suits standing there who at least let Andre lead the conversation. This would have been done differently today, but Andre is actually pretty good in this scene considering.
I know that when Mummy died, someone else was there, wasn't there? Do you remember much about them?
Alex isn't responding to this. He's carrying on playing and almost pretending like he didn't hear, which is a very clear indication that this is really, really difficult for him. You'll notice he's kind of humming or mumbling to himself, a self-soothing vocalization largely to kind of regulate the emotional distress right now. It's super, super difficult for him, and the worst thing in these situations is when the person asking the questions gets annoyed as a result of this, feels like they're not being listened to, starts firing off even more direct questions and going, Alex, listen, you know? We see this kind of thing a moment later when Andre's gone to identify Rachel and he takes Alex with him and he asks Alex if he wants to see his mummy. He's very keen that Alex does as like his last chance to, but Alex prefers to play on the floor as though he doesn't even know what's going on. I mean, of course he knows what's going on, but it's too much right now.
Alex, do you want to see Mummy now?
Alex doesn't and shouldn't be pressed to do these things if he doesn't want to. If he seems to want to, perhaps it's different, but you still need to be careful because what might feel keen at the time might suddenly become overwhelming. Identifying her may help Andre's own closure, and I think in moments like this, he's so eager to try and give Alex closure, desperately just wants him to be okay, to be able to move on, but you can't force that. You can't make him okay. The best you can do is be there and express in your behaviour that it's okay to not always be okay. But yeah, right now the distance Alex has through his play and his self-soothing is an important defence. Ideally they wouldn't be questioning him at all right now. I'd have concerns about how safe it is, but I understand why they do so, and with that in mind, Andre says,
What about if I draw him? Can you help me draw him?
Alex still doesn't want to, but we see him smashing a person's body with a toy dinosaur. Alex is expressing something there. He's not completely shutting down. You can see an obvious metaphor in his play.
See, the bad man, I don't like him. And this is what I want to do with him. Yeah?
I think this is great. It just opens the door to the idea Alex's feelings about the events and about the murderer can be thought about, can be expressed. Not even necessarily as a point of like finding evidence, but just expression, just emotional processing. I don't think it leads to much investigation wise here, but it's a good step for his development. And interestingly, we then get a therapy session that kind of shows the reverse of this.
And I can assure you that if Alex can talk about what happened, then it will help him in the future.
This was the prevailing view in the 90s, but it's not really the belief now. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's too cut and dry. Because one, people can recover perfectly well without disclosing much emotionally about their trauma, and one of the reasons is because there are other ways to express and to reflect and process, such as play, such as getting a toy dinosaur to slam down on a doll's body, such as drawing. Later in the series we see one of Alex's teachers is concerned because all his drawings look like this. People don't have to open up massively in order to recover. It can help in the right circumstances, but it's not essential because there's so many other things we may all do on a daily basis. Not just about processing trauma, but processing our feelings, reflecting on ourselves and the world. The amount of therapy sessions where the work was done just via a discussion about a kid's favourite movie or a PlayStation game, the meaning they drew from it, what it reflects about them, exploring that. Over the years, our understanding of therapy has improved, as has the demand for it, but at the same time, therapists have increasingly needed to go online to try and reach more clients, and if you want to be found online, it stands to reason you need a website. I certainly did myself, which is where today's sponsor Squarespace comes in. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to suit all your needs: intuitive website design, all sorts of important integrations, securing your own domain, SEO tools, analytics, invoices, booking schedules, contact forms, all to help you run your business in one place. Like I said, all in one. I've been building my own website on Squarespace, and this footage is me building it from scratch without need of any tutorials. It's really simple. Add elements, drag and resize everything on a grid system, change the colours, add pictures, a nice contact form, maybe build a shop page so you can sell such things as your new poetry book. Yeah. Thanks to Squarespace, this website is live now, this shop page is live, all set up with very little hassle at all, and I've been getting sales both of my poetry book, as well as commissions for editing work through Squarespace, simple as anything. So, if you want the best domain name at an all-inclusive price, if you want integrated SEO tools, if you want a giant scrolling list of all the things Squarespace offer, then click the link in the description or the pinned comment for a free trial to Squarespace. And if it suits you nicely, then use the code MyLittleFortry to get 10% off purchasing your first domain or website, just like I did. Yep, Squarespace. And then yes, point 2, whilst it can help to talk about your traumatic experiences, that still has to mean in the right circumstances. As we've kept saying, when the child feels safe, when they want to, when they know they can stop whenever they might like, and when the adults follow at their pace. However, the therapist says this about it being important for Alex's recovery in later life as though it's a justification to just bombard him with questions, like it's important for his growth that we make him talk. And I don't think she exactly intended it that way, but it gives the police license to bombard Alex with questions.
Do you remember if he said anything, Alex?
Which hand did the man have the knife in, Alex?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about police interviews nowadays to know exactly how they work, but the police have gone specifically to this therapist to see if she can help interview him, and personally, I would be concerned about the police being in the room here. It makes sense for Andre and his nan to be there right now, when leaving Alex alone with a stranger could be terrifying for him, but the session is already being recorded for police evidence. If they absolutely had to stay, I'd be telling them simply to observe, and if the session doesn't progress as quickly as they like, then they can step outside. This whole session is framed around getting information, and Alex being a witness, rather than helping Alex to process and treating him as a human, you know? That has to come first in my opinion. That has to be the priority. Alex responds to these questions through his play becoming more destructive, and Andre is concerned about this because it's not good behaviour to break toys in ordinary circumstances, but the therapist is correct that it's fine here.
Hey, Alex. Gentle.
Sorry.
This is saying a lot. Nothing evidential yet, but it's a start, and the best thing you can do is acknowledge what Alex is expressing and show you understand. Probably nothing too specific just yet, not talk about the murder itself, but just the anger, perhaps the desire for strength, perhaps a mention about the fact it sometimes feels like things can break very easily. Respond to something along those lines, not so specific that it feels invasive this early on, to show that you're engaging and understanding with what he's expressing, and that's not what the therapist does here. She largely ignores what he's expressing to say something different.
You must have felt so small and helpless.
That's giving Alex even more fear and even more reason to raise his defences. That's not going to encourage him that it's safe to open up further. You save this kind of talk for later down the line, if at all. You must have felt small and helpless. You're practically telling the child who already feels very unsafe that you are helpless. If you think it's a good idea to have that kind of conversation, do it through the play, you know? Wonder how the doll feels that's being stamped on by the dinosaur, if that doll feels small and helpless. The therapist then also falls into asking direct questions that Alex responds to by drawing more aggressively.
Nicely, Alex.
And when the therapist keeps pushing, this increases until he's now stabbing the paper with the crayons. We remember his mum was stabbed 48 times, and it's quite uncomfortable to watch this in that context. Andre is getting worked up because he doesn't understand this as an expression, or if he does, I think it's caught up with that fear of what if Alex is going to become like the murderer. People always say how those who experience abuse are doomed to become abusers themselves, but the vast majority of the time that's not true. And it's not a fear Andre should lose himself to. That's not to say it has no effects on Alex, of course it does, but moments like this likely express a desire in Alex to understand the killer, to wrap his head around why it happened, or to defend himself from feeling small and helpless by identifying with the one who appeared powerful in that moment. This doesn't mean this is the culmination of Alex's personality, it means there are things here he feels a need to explore, and if you can enable him to do that safely, it can hopefully become less overwhelming and less likely to dictate his behaviour. However, the therapist isn't working in this moment to keep this safe. She is pushing her questions more, and I think we see this drawing here shift from Alex potentially processing something into instead re-experiencing it. It's gotten too much, too overwhelming, too distressing. He's caught up right back in that moment.
Gentle or stop, Alex. Alex. Alex, stop, Alex. Alex. Hey. Alex, stop it. Come on, calm down.
The therapist should have been recognising where this was heading and kind of intervenes to try and calm it again. Alex needs to be reminded here that he's safe. He needs soothing, not orders. But that's obviously really, really difficult when you're in Andre's shoes, especially when the therapist hasn't ever done anything really to explain this to you. I don't think this is a good example of a therapy session. Granted, this is much more a police interview, but even so, I think the therapist drops the ball in this moment, and I think after this would be the time to kind of be winding the session down now. Not going any further with the interview, drawing the session back into something more fun and relaxing, and maybe leaving it again till another day. One of the interesting aspects of this story is that Andre and Alex both get hounded by the press, and it completely disrupts their day-to-day living. We talked about the importance of honesty and routine. We talked about stability and getting to experience again some boundaries that don't fall apart, and having journalists hound you at every moment disrupts all of that stability. So Andre decides to take Alex away somewhere they won't be known. They move to a small area of France to effectively start again, and Andre says this.
We're leaving all the bad things behind, Alex. That means we can't tell anyone about what happened to Mummy. And if they do ask, you remember what we say, right?
Accident.
And if they keep asking, we can say car accident.
On a lot of levels, this is a terrible idea because moving disrupts the stability even more. Alex has to get used to an entirely new environment now where it might be difficult to feel safe. He has to lose all of his friends at home. He is further away from his nan. He is in a country where he doesn't yet know the language. That's a lot of upheaval, and it kind of shrinks Alex's world to now mainly be dominated by someone else who is also going through a lot of grief and trauma and who may also need a support network. Now, neither of them have one nearby. It's a tremendous strain on Andre to raise someone in that situation, and it's important we stress that Andre does still talk about everything with Alex in confidence when they're together alone, so it's not like they're completely shutting out all awareness of it. It's good that's still the case, but obviously it's only with Andre that can happen, and that makes it really difficult. And secondly, getting away so you can move on isn't always as successful as you'd imagine, as people tend to talk about, as you see in, like, a lot of movies. You know, sometimes the reminders of the trauma aren't a bad thing and can be helpful for recovery. Again, if it's a safe amount. We don't know how it feels for Alex to still be staying in the same home, or even in the same location. It doesn't necessarily have to mean the same home. How it feels for him if he associates that with his mum, it could be great, that could be an avenue for helping him to explore and recover, but it could be really overwhelming as well. It depends what Alex associates the house with itself and how that feels to him, but there's also still being near enough to see extended family that you can talk to about it if you wanted to, that understand what you went through. Or there's like still being able to go places that you went with your mum, where you have memories of your mum if you wanted to. Again, you don't necessarily have to go there, but if you wanted to, you could. Moving to France, however, isolates you from all of that. And thirdly, Alex is being taught to lie about an experience that was massive in his life. And lying regularly could make it difficult to build a more coherent understanding of it all in your mind. Again, it's important Andre does still talk openly and honestly to Alex about it, but everyone else, it becomes this kind of family secret, this lie. It teaches Alex it's not safe to find another support network. It suggests everything outside of Andre himself is dangerous to trust, and that's not a great message for recovery. We get this heartbreaking scene with Andre meeting one of Alex's teachers in France.
No, I mean, he understands, but he won't talk to adults at all. Can you think of a reason for that?
No.
She shows him Alex's drawings and then suggests referring Alex to the school psychiatrist.
I would still like to refer Alex to the school psychiatrist.
No.
We're here to help you.
So really, I have to insist. No psychiatrist.
That should be the exact kind of person Alex can trust, where he can get to explore everything, but in a place that's safe and contained and doesn't have to spill out into the rest of his life. That's one of the big fears here, I think, both for Andre and Alex, whether it's about the press, whether it's about the murder itself. The idea that your contained safe spaces spill outwards into everything and all of those boundaries just wash away. Andre is just as much struggling with the trauma here as Alex. He is terrified of anything making Alex feel in danger, and therefore he attempts to control and to shut all of it down. And obviously boundaries are important, but they can also be a bit too rigid. We see he keeps a bag with money and some essentials by the front door at all times in case they ever have to leave in a hurry. Perhaps to him it's reassuring to have that there, but to Alex this likely signals we are still not entirely safe. And again, none of it is Andre's fault. He is already in a massively difficult situation here where it'd be so hard to raise Alex well entirely on your own. And I think in that context he does a great job, as we'll kind of see, but it's, I think, a failure of society that he isn't allowed and isn't enabled to have a support network around him, that the way society is kind of denies him that. And I think that's one of my big takeaways from this drama. So in no senses, moving away is not ideal, but yeah, on the other hand, you can't just live a safe life with journalists camped outside your window, swarming around you every time you step outside, firing questions at you about the murder even more invasively than the police were doing. There's a very real risk that if they talk to people in France about their lives, if they explain who they are, journalists will then find out and begin hounding them again. They will discover their address, they will go to their house, and eventually this does happen. Andre takes the decision then to move them to Barcelona. I don't think there's a perfect option here, whether to stay or whether to go. If you're not getting any greater support elsewhere, there isn't a good solution exactly. I really like how honest the story is about that. You often see the press criticised for their invasive nature in stories, but it's often treated like some kind of inconvenience malice to tolerate, rather than here where it is actively damaging to a child's development as well as his father's. And not even just the press, just random strangers who want to come up and talk like they think they're being considerate.
I'm so sorry. I just had to come over to him. It's Andre, isn't it? Oh, and this must be her little Alex.
Sorry.
Oh no, I just wanted to make sure that you're both okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
I think, on balance, Andre did the right thing. It's a shame to deny your son a psychiatrist as well as your own support when it was clearly an overwhelming time for the both of them. I don't think doing that was necessary, but I can understand exactly why it felt so difficult. And he nonetheless sought to give his son as safe a life as possible, and based on what we see of Alex as an older man, at least in this drama, I don't know about the true story. I've avoided learning about that because I don't want to be... I do have a real ethical concern about analysing real people, you know? But as we see it here, Andre succeeded. This young boy grew into someone healthy. And whilst that's not entirely down to Andre, it suggests he did well for his son. Almost all of the time, growth and development and being supportive for children in our lives is a trade-off. No one gets it perfect. And you know, even if they could craft the perfect environment, that in itself is not enough. Psychoanalyst always talks about being a good enough parent, someone imperfect who is nonetheless capable to guide us through the troubles of an equally imperfect world. To be a good enough parent is good enough. There is a lot we could talk about in the dynamic between Alex and Andre. There is a lot of complication here, and we see Alex as an adolescent, and there's a lot of interesting stuff, but I think we're going to leave it here for today. This feels like a good stopping point. This video is already quite long, and whilst this is a drama about a story of Andre and Alex that they chose to tell and were involved in the telling of, this is still based on a true story, and we should still be mindful of that. Perhaps I'll make another video if there's interest for it, but now I'm going to say comment your thoughts, good or bad. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe, maybe support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Luke Gore, Michael Gallagher, Emery, Faithy, TQM, Kinesthetic, Maury, Sebastian, Alicia, Chad Bramwell and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.